What the fuck?!
I will never accept this game's positive reception for all the bullshit I've had to endure up to this point, and I especially won't accept it for the god-awful 99 warp spheres trick in the Omega runes. You have to open these 12 treasure chests without getting a mimic chest in order to get the warp spheres. And trust me, it's a lot harder than it looks. The mimic always has a chance of appearing regardless of the order you're opening the chests, even if it's the last one in a group. And if you separate yourself too far from each of these chests, they disappear and you have to do the whole thing over. The success rate is 1 in 240, and the game is setting up a stupid set of rules for opening these chests. Even the description on the Wikia is so poorly explained and so vaguely elaborated that you're just randomly going to each chest hoping you don't get a mimic. And if the success ratio is any indication, you'll probably spend dozens of hours of the game saying "fuck you, start over" by the time you finally end up getting it. It's not even worth it for how badly the RNG fucks with you, and the fact there's far less frustrating farming methods outside of this. As a matter of fact, it's not even worth it because of the ridiculous amount that's being offered at all. You won't need 99 of these fucking things since you'll only be using them about 20 times, and their purpose can easily be overwritten by any return spheres, friend spheres, and teleport spheres you come across. Even rushing through the opening cutscene by pressing X screws you out of getting these warp spheres, and being forced to watch it every single time you fail is another way for the shitheads who made this game to fuck with your time. Hiding all of the more useful items behind bribes that cost a shit ton of money to pull off, and that they can only be stolen from monsters created in the monster arena, which I already elaborated as pointless, is a cheap and insulting way to pad out the game's lifespan. Customizing weapons and armor takes hours to do, as farming the items takes hours to accomplish on its own, and obtaining the ribbon ability just to obtain immunity from status ailments which shouldn't even fucking exist in the first place is the most insulting fuck you to the player from any video game I've ever heard. You need 99 dark matter, exactly 99, in order to get one ribbon on your party. With 7 fighters, that means you need 693 altogether for each party member to get one. And the only way to get dark matter is by fighting Dark Yojimbo. Yes, a boss fight that already requires you to spend hundreds of hours leveling up to even match up to at all. You have to fight him 693 times. And that's if he drops a dark matter instead of a master sphere. Or you can just repeat the process of fighting these dark aeons over and over and over again until they randomly drop a ribbon equipment. It's amazing. The one thing that you need in order to be immune to one of the worst aspects of the gameplay is rendered completely fucking pointless for how much time it takes to obtain even one of them. There's also a pointless affection mechanic that's completely invisible to the player, where Tidus is supposedly building a relationship with other party members. The player is never aware of this mechanic, not even given a fucking tutorial on it. You have no way of knowing the mechanics around how to level up relationships or which actions have an effect on each party member. Its presence is stupid considering the story forces him to get with Yuna anyway, and what's worse is this mechanic screws the player out of more interesting dialogue. When you're driving to the temple out in the snow, your driving companion is based on whose relationship status is higher. I'm always hoping to get the conversation with Riku because it adds more character to her role in the story, but I always end up getting stuck with Lulu. It sucks because I wasn't even thinking of Lulu when I was spending time talking to party members, so I ended up relating to her mostly when that wasn't even the intention. They could have at least given us the option to choose who we'd ride with, but having it all hinder on the outcome of this shitty mechanic, one that I didn't even know was in the game until I looked up how to get Riku's conversation, is another way for the stupid developers of this shit pile of a game to force something on you instead of providing the player with actual freedom of choice. quite frankly, the HD version somehow manages to be even worse with the inclusion of these god-awful Dark Aeon encounters. These fights, of course, require you to spend hundreds of hours leveling up to match them, showing up in areas where you're not even given the option to skip them, thus blocking your access to select areas that you previously had access to before. Remember how you were freely allowed to go to Besaid Island to collect the last jet sphere you need to get Auron's Tornado Overdrive? Well, the retards who remastered this game say, fuck you, you can't do that anymore. Because Dark Valleyfor completely blocks your access to the village until you defeat it. And if you were misfortunate enough to forget about the Destruction Sphere, you were also unable to obtain Anima, making you feel even more fucked over. No more Auron's Final Overdrive, no more Valleyfor's Secret Overdrive, all because the developers wanted to force a stupid and pointless super boss onto you that wasn't even there the first time. And while we're at it, let's talk about other things that they managed to fuck up. When you're introduced to customizing your equipment, Tidus's Brotherhood sword is completely modified without your consent. It's given a water strike ability, making it completely useless to you since half the monsters in the game are either immune to water or absorb water for health. And what about when I'm trying to get into this locker to obtain Wakka's crest? The locker is right fucking there, and the game won't allow me to open it. Is this really supposed to be one of those times where the game says, fuck you, you can't obtain this item until later despite that it's right in front of you? And what about this scene where I'm trying to touch the save sphere to save my game, but Wakka and Auron are standing next to it? Whenever I press X, I end up talking to them when I'm trying to save. No matter how much I maneuver around them or grind myself against the sphere, I can't access it because it's blocked by Wakka and Auron. What the hell is this shit? Now I'm not even allowed to save my fucking game? What if the power goes out before I get past that kissing scene with Tidus and Yuna? Now I have to fucking fight Seymour and watch all of those unskippable cutscenes all over again. And after all that, we're still not done because I'm going to talk about the one thing that absolutely kills this game, the leveling system. It sucks ass! You obtain AP by defeating monsters, which allows you to increase movements on the sphere grid, where you spend spheres to level up your stats and obtain abilities. The problem here is that it's one of the most time-consuming things in the game. The first issue is that party members only obtain AP if they did something in the fight, meaning you have to constantly waste time shifting them in and out so everyone levels up evenly, even if you don't need them to defeat the current enemies on screen. And if anyone gets left out, their progression ends up being slowed down, which is not something you want happening to you when later battles and boss fights require you to use different party members if your current 3 fighters are hit with ailments or are low on health. If you only level up 3 fighters, you'll be in big trouble since many of the battles require you to use different characters to counter each monster's defenses, strategies, and placements. What would have made this less stressful was giving party members AP regardless if they did something in the battle. This way you never have to worry about wasting time swapping everyone in and out and not get confused as to who did something and still needs to do something. Look at Kingdom Hearts. You never had to worry about Goofy participating in fights because he grows alongside Sora. It should have been so that all of the characters grow alongside Tidus, which makes sense considering the story is always suggesting that they function as a team. It may just be 7 fighters you need to keep track of, which may not seem like a lot, but trust me, you will have a hard time keeping track of who did something and who hasn't done something yet. What really gets to me is that they don't even have to fight to obtain AP. All you have to do to guarantee your party members obtain AP is just press the triangle button so they defend. Yes, simply pressing the triangle button on their turn makes the game think they did any fighting to earn their AP, which is stupid. Why are they getting AP for doing absolutely nothing? Why are Yuna and Aura getting experience for doing nothing but standing there while Tidus does all the work? And if the party members can obtain AP for doing nothing, why the fuck do I need to keep swapping everyone out? Doing nothing while on screen is no different from doing something off screen, so they should get AP regardless. And then you've got the sphere grid, which is possibly the shittiest leveling mechanic in any video game I've ever played. Your characters are placed on a grid with a bunch of nods that need to be filled up, and the grid is ridiculously huge. You'll spend hundreds of hours just trying to level up one of your party members all the way, but the game expects you to do this 7 times. It's especially painful because since the grid is so large and so spread out, you'll probably lose track of which spheres need to be filled up in between all the spheres that have been activated. What's worse is that navigating through it is just confusing. All of the paths are so jumbled together and mashed against each other that they often look too blended, so you'll have a hard time identifying which direction you need to go or which paths will take you where. The design of the grid feels so shallow and so lifeless that you'll have a hard time noticing what needs to be done and where you're being taken. Oh, and you also have a bunch of empty nods to fill, like the designers expect you to do over half of the work yourself. The thing is, obtaining these purple spheres are time-consuming and hard because they're more of a rarity than the red ones. Half the time, it doesn't even make any sense. Remember Final Fantasy XIII where you're forced to increase Hope's strength, despite that he's the weakest physical fighter in the game and he's supposed to be a specialist in using magic? Yeah, well, it's no less annoying when this game does it. Look at this, I can increase Wakka's magic? Why the fuck would I do that? Wakka's not a mage. His portion of the sphere grid doesn't specialize in using magic of any sort. And why would I want to use him for magic anyway when I already have 2 or 3 other fighters who are already masters in this field? Another infuriating part about the sphere grid is the backtracking and the locks. There's several leveled locks on the grid that you have no access to early on, so you're expected to go back to these later because they're blocking access to nods that you need to fill up to increase your stats. But going back to them later means you have to use blue spheres, which you'll need to gain access to more unused spheres. The blue ones are also harder to farm and are rarer to find, so your progression feels like it's coming to a halt constantly. Another issue is the branching paths, where you're expected to go to the left in order to get those additional nods filled, but you have to use up available moves you have. And even when you're going backwards to nods that you've already filled up and paths that you have already taken, the game will take away movements that you're using to fill up the grid. The game literally penalizes you for using branching paths that it sets up for you to take, making it so you have to level up even more before you can get back on track. It's tedious because you have to do this so many times with many different characters, and obtaining the locks is as time-consuming as everything else. But the worst part about it is how the sphere grid and the concept of obtaining spheres completely stops your leveling process. You can only level up if you have the right spheres, and your sphere inventory is always being depleted so quickly because it has to be shared amongst 7 characters. If you don't have enough spheres before you run out while still having moves left over, you aren't allowed to level up. Your leveling is completely restricted to how much of each red type of sphere you have, and if you run out, you'll have to waste time collecting more spheres by fighting the same monsters over and over and over again. Some areas don't even provide enemies that drop the spheres that you'll need, and it's very problematic considering that ability spheres are the least plentiful spheres during the first 10 hours of the game. If you didn't have enough ability spheres before you left to Mushroom Rock, you were completely screwed over. What's truly insulting about the leveling system in this game is that because of the way it's set up, you're never allowed to level up naturally regardless of how good you are at the combat. If I'm defeating enemies regularly and competently, I should be leveling up as expected. I should get increased defense, attack power, magic, and obtain new abilities progressively and in a way that's normal. It shouldn't have to be restrained to the design of this piece of shit grid that's practically forced onto you. If Pokemon required you to pause the game every 4 minutes to look over a fucking chart for each of your dozens of Pokemon and have you spend hundreds of hours collecting a bunch of colored buttons and obtain experience points to even move around the chart to fill it up with those buttons, to even make any of your Pokemon any fucking useful, it would have been universally despised. Is it at least worth it when you finally feel the satisfaction of accomplishment for defeating the final boss? No. Why? Because the final boss is a fucking joke. Literally, all you have to do to defeat Yu Yevon is take 2 turns, zombie attack with Auron and full life with Yuna. The final battle of the story, the thing that this game is trying to get you invested in, is so fucking anticlimactic that it's over in 20 seconds. All this time I talked about the bosses being frustratingly difficult, but this final boss, the one that's presented as the climax, is insultingly easy. Even if you don't go with the zombie full life route, it's impossible to feel challenged in any way while fighting Yu Yevon. His defense and magic defense are cartoonishly low, so you can easily drain him of all of his health, and nothing stops you from casting Reflect on him so his healing spells bounce onto you. Even if you die, the Faith through some kind of crap have auto life casted on you, so you never feel the danger of possibly being defeated by Yu Yevon. Everything about this ending boss is just a joke, considering how fast it can be over with and how unfairly easy it is, if that's even an actual thing. That's because, and there's no way to convince me that this isn't the truth, considering everything I've said about Final Fantasy X up to this point, the assholes in Japan who put this fucking game together, they just wanted to troll you for making it this far. They deliberately wanted to make you feel like a fucking moron for spending money on this piece of dog shit. If you really want to spare yourself the trouble of embarrassing yourself, here's what you do. Turn off the game immediately after you defeat Jet, then just go to YouTube and watch the ending cutscene. I'll even leave it in the description because trust me, it's not worth playing through 40 to 90 hours of this shit on your own system to see it. And just to add a final testament to how fucking awful this game is, this is something that literally happened to me while I was fighting Sin. Fuck this game! Okay, look, I'm very sorry this review dragged out for so long, but considering all of the shit I had to go through to review this game, could you blame me? This game just disgusts me. It disgusts me not just for how bad it is, but for how praised it is, for all the positive reception and reviews it's gotten over the years. It's like the game is proud of itself for being so bad, and people wanted to reward it for being so bad. Everyone who ever played this game and said that they liked it were basically telling the industry that they want more games like this. They want games with boring and linear design, with a shitty item stealing mechanic, with infuriating status ailments, with a horrendous leveling system, with boring puzzles, with a final boss that acts as a middle finger to everyone who paid money for this game, with badly written characters that never once come across as relatable. Top it all off with repetitive boss fights, shit-sucking minigames, insultingly time-consuming side quests, shit-sucking minigames, pointless affection mechanics, shit-sucking minigames, broken turn-based mechanics, shit-sucking minigames, confusing combat, shit-sucking minigames, and a story that's desperately trying to save itself from a bad script. And you've got a game that is far from deserving the perfect 10 out of 10 scores it received when it first came out. For all of this, Final Fantasy X gets not a 10, but a 2 out of 10. It is a painfully bad game, especially for one that's constantly being brought up as a standing example of good game design over the years. It's lazy, it's repetitive, it's boring, it's badly translated, it's tedious, it's unnecessarily time-consuming. I just have nothing else to say about this piece of shit game. It's just bad. I need time to relax. I'm just glad it's over. 5 weeks of playing this shit pile of a game is finally over. I hope you enjoyed my first attempt at reviewing a video game, and if you don't, please don't stress me out in the comments section. I need to get ready for my 2016 movie reviews. Have a nice day, and take care of yourselves. MisAnthro Pony, over and out. Fuck this game. That was not worth it! Maybe that was worth it.